You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Last month, the National Football League Players Association ratified a new collective bargaining agreement with the NFL. The agreement will run through the 2030 season and provide players and owners labor peace during an uncertain time for the country. The players' vote was close with 1,119 players, 51.5% voting in favor, and 959, 48.5% voting against. Also, I understand some 500 players didn't even vote. What the hell were they thinking? But a win is a win. A majority by one vote would have had the same impact, of course, as a unanimous vote in their favor. Then the 456-page deal was passed. But if the players vote on the right deal. Joining me now is Eric Reid, who's a free agent, and his attorney, Ben Meiselas. Is correct? Meiselas, is that it?
That's it, Meiselas.
Meiselas. All right. Glad to have both of you here. Eric, I want to start with you. You've been quite vocal with your comments on social media, talking about this deal. I've seen accounts by the wives of NFL players, former players who say that they're going to be hurt by this and they're freaking out because they are the caregivers. And so what has been your main objection to this deal?
Well, initially, I got a random email saying that I needed to vote on the deal. No heads up at all. And I had no clue what I was voting on. So I asked Ben to review it for me because I'm not a lawyer and it's a contract, 546 pages. And through his revision and his review, he found a litany of issues that he thought would impact players. One being the change to disability payments. And then after the vote happened, Ben recognized that there was a change to language that we had voted on.
And so, but even when it came to that language, what I keep hearing from these wives is they felt that this deal gives short shrift to these players, and many of them dealing with some serious medical issues as a result of their playing days in the NFL.
Yeah, and so one of the biggest problems are that these guys sign total and permanent disability agreements to receive their health benefits. Now, this means that they can never work because of their disabilities. The contracts that they signed to receive these benefits were for life. And now the NFL and the NFLPA are going back and retroactively changing that language and saying that it is no longer for life, among other things, which Ben can speak to more in depth.
Ben, go ahead, jump in.
Yeah, I mean, look, one of the most important things of any union is not just to protect your most powerful members, but to protect your most vulnerable members. And one of the most shocking things is at all aspects, the quote-unquote trade-off they made was drastically reducing disability benefits and reducing disability benefits from a $250,000 a year cap to $48,000 to applying offsets to players who are guaranteed certain disability benefits for life that drastically would reduce their monthly payments that they were promised, and also mischievously changing the definition of the very word disability. Normally, it was based on what the Social Security Department claimed. If you were disabled by the government, that was good enough for the NFL and the NFLPA. Now, the criteria is going to be made by the disability plan, whether or not you're disabled. And we've heard from players, people who can't even walk down the block when you didn't have the Social Security qualifier would be claimed to be perfectly fine and not disabled. So the Social Security qualifier was critical. And so really you've thrown these disabled players completely under the bus. You've called them a trade-off, and the NFL has built their league in billions of dollars off the backs of these players from the 80s and 90s. And so we sent our legal letter. You know, Eric held these incredible town halls that he can speak to where the wives spoke. And fortunately, the NFLPA has recognized this week, they said, we will be reevaluating the situation because I think they've recognized they've made a mistake. And that's because of the great advocacy of Eric Reid.
So where do we stand now? So we say it was ratified, but they also said that, yeah, that was an alteration. Eric, you said revote, correct?
Yeah, look. I follow the advice of my lawyer, Ben, and it doesn't take. I'm not a lawyer, but it seems disingenuous for there to be a vote to take place and then for the language that we voted on to be altered after the fact. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem legal, and according to Ben, it's not legal. So something needs to be done about it, whether we revote or nullify the CBA. Something has to be done here.
Ben, is it going to happen? Is it a long shot?
You know, the good news is, as I've said, it's a step in the right direction. Initially, reflexively, the NFLPA and NFL, criticized Eric, but kind of once again, Eric is right, and they recognize that they've made the mistake. So as I said, it's a step in the right direction that the president of the PA said we will be reviewing and reevaluating the decisions we've made with disabled players. That came out as recent as early this week. But as I've said in interviews, those are just words. And we've heard idle words from the union over and over again. And I've made it very clear, we will be bringing a legal action if those are just words. If they want to do the right thing, they want to help permanently disabled players, they want to restore the benefits that these retired disabled players were promised, I'm not going to file an unnecessary legal action. But if it's just idle words and a PR stunt, and they say, hey, we're going to reevaluate and do nothing, of course, we're going to assume. I don't think it's a long shot. Hey, when you change a contract and you change a comma or a period in contracts in the law that I do, you have to flag that and say, hey, I'm making an alteration. When you make a change that reduces disability benefits for 400 players and you claim that to be non-substantive, I've never heard of that before in my life, yet alone where the impact is so substantial, which is precisely what they did. So is it a long shot? No, I think it's logical. I think it's legal. And I think that's why the PA has recognized it. And I think we all have to thank Eric Reid for bringing this to the attention and bringing it to the forefront again.
Questions for my panel here. First, I want to go to Scott Bolden. Scott?
Hey, you all. Scott Bolden here. Hey, Ben, you and I both know edits or corrections for typos happen all the time in contractual negotiations when there's a final product. But this is a really huge and important issue because there are more offsets for players who filed before 2015 than after 2015. And so it ought to be pretty simple and direct to show that there were substantive changes. The real question is, do you go to the NLRB that historically will take forever to change this, or do you just go to federal court and seek a temporary restraining order or a permanent injunction?
It's not only a good question, it's a great question. And frankly, it's a debate that you have, right? You'd love for the NLRB to do the right thing here, but I'm with you that, it would take forever. Here's what we know. By 2021, the impact, the thing takes effect. The changes take effect. So it would not necessarily be a preliminary emergency injunction, especially given court closures, given COVID, but it would certainly be injunctive relief. And as we got closer to that 2021, the necessity for an emergency, based on my analysis, would seem to be triggered. So it will get to an emergency position soon. So I think it looks more and more like a TRO. And I think it's framed very simply, which is what you discussed. You made a dramatic change that impacted the lives of hundreds of people and reduced their disability. You want to claim it's non-substantive? I think any logical reading would be it is substantive. Judge, make a decision and restore these benefits and excise that provision.
But the other thing is, what's interesting about this case, Roland, is that the NFL and NFLPA, neither one of them want to go back and do this, and they probably got their own reasons. And so we ought to watch this case closely.
Yeah, $12 billion.
Right.
That's why. Lauren Victoria Burke, your question for Ben and Eric Reid.
Yeah, Ben and Eric, how you doing? I was going to ask a question like that. Why would this change have been made in the first place? It would be my guess that there wouldn't be that many people involved in terms of these types of benefits. But Roland sort of just answered the question with regard to money. But I'm wondering, does anyone have any clue about why this change was made or when it came up? And Eric, on a personal note, I really enjoy your Instagram, particularly your last photo 9 hours ago. But does anybody have any idea why this came up?
Yeah, I think as the science has evolved, it's become clear that essentially 100% of retired players will be retired disabled players, and many of them will be permanently disabled players. So I think the owners and the PA looking at these issues, especially in light of the concussion cases, see this as an area that could be potentially very expensive for them and can to their profits. So that's why you've had this push to have this incredibly long CBA, 10 years, and to lock in caps, because I think they realize that the science is going to show that if you have hundreds or thousands of players claiming disability, potentially for $250,000 a year for life, which was promised, that they think that's going to cut into profits. Regarding the very specific change that was made, the NFLPA's position was, you all should have realized, even though we made a mistake and didn't include the disability aspects for players before January 1, 2015, come on, you should have realized that the intent of it was, since we were stripping benefits anyway, everybody should have known that we were stripping benefits of all players, because it would be incongruous for us to take benefits away just from post January 1, 2015 if we didn't take pre-January 2015. And frankly, I think that's a ridiculous legal argument to be made. But I think that's the bigger picture argument and the micro argument to answer both of your questions.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, Eric, my question, Joseph here, just my question for you specifically. I think it's well documented, kind of the malfeasance of the NFL. We talk about, this is a league that you can sign a multi-million-dollar contract on Monday. They can get tired of you on a Tuesday and kick you out the door penniless on a Wednesday. So I think that is obviously, this has been the case my entire life, certainly your entire career. But I think my question, is more, how do we keep getting here? And specifically when it comes to the NFL Players Association Union, and forgive me for maybe putting you on the spot, but, this is obviously the most violent sport on the planet. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar multinational organization. How is it that it seems to me that we keep finding ourselves in a situation where, for one reason or another, the union hasn't found a way to protect its most vulnerable members?
Well, I think that's exactly it. It boils down to union leadership. Demore Smith was in charge of negotiation on the last CBA, which people said was the historically worst CBA in the history of sports. And we're right back here again with this CBA. It boils down to union leadership.
And so,
I think. Go ahead.
No, Joseph, go ahead.
No, I think to that point, again, to me, how do you change that, right? Because I think to me, I think whether you're talking about a neighborhood or whether you're talking about a family that is that fraternity of the NFL, at some point, I know you're not the only person who feels this way, right? And so at some point, how do you get to a point where you can galvanize, enough people to say that, we're not going to be treated, basically as, at-will employees by a multi-billion-dollar organization. Even back to the contracts, not to harp on it, but if you are planning a wedding right now, there are catering halls right now that won't return deposits for people who are trying to plan weddings, and we have people who are going to be permanently disabled, and they can't even get their just pay and their just due. So, to me, again, I don't know if you have the answer, but maybe somebody has the answer. How do we get enough players to realize that things are bad enough that they need to not only take care of themselves, but also take care of future generations of NFL players?
Well, the answer is the same. It's union leadership. And with regards to this CBA, again, there was no announcement saying, hey, you guys, we're going to vote on the CBA next week. I happened to check my email on a Tuesday and saw that there was a vote on the CBA. Had my phone been broken, had I just chosen not to check my email that day, I would have never known. And that may have been the case with the 500 players that didn't vote. Maybe they just didn't check their email for a week. We don't know.
And here's an incredible thing, too. The executive committee, who's responsible for voting on whether or not to pass it to the broader vote, the executive committee voted no on the CBA by a vote of 7-4. And regardless of the executive committee's vote no, it was still sent to the larger body to vote. And this wasn't a CBA year. 2021 was the CBA year. So a lot of players were frankly surprised that they had 10 days in the middle of a pandemic to have to sift through not only a 456-page document, but it references disability plans that are also hundreds of pages. So you're really talking about 1,000 pages or so in about 10 days, where the executive committee that was supposed to be the first line of protection voted no against this. And so what Eric and I have been doing is we've been battling, on the legal front, but we've also been battling by holding these town halls as we've both been quarantined at home, by bringing the wives of players and having wives of disabled players talk to us on a town hall style interview, so that the executive committee and current players can say, wait a minute, and their wives can say, wait a minute, that's going to be me one day, and that's real life. And if I'm not going to be covered, that I should look out for myself in addition to these players. So it's a multifaceted approach that we have, but ultimately it is to protect the most vulnerable players in the sport who are disabled. And that's the most important thing to harp on over and over again. And that's who we want to protect. And time again, Eric Reid, who's on your program right now, has been proven right for standing on the right side of history. And he's going to be proven yet again to be doing that here.
Eric, with your constant focus on this, whether we talk about on social media, raising these questions, bringing Ben in, have you heard from players who did vote yes, who said, dude, if I knew all of this stuff, there's no way I would have voted yes?
So I've heard for one player in particular, Lorenzo Alexander, who sits on that executive committee, who voted, well, actually, I don't know what he voted, but he's on the committee that voted no. He acknowledged that this was a mistake. He said that in an interview, but I've heard more so from players who are going to be affected by this. Former teammates of mine, one who suffered a neck injury and is disabled, he didn't even know about this. Like he had no idea until I called him. And
so who actually voted? First of all, before you finish that, who voted? Was it current players? They're the only ones who could vote?
Yes, you're correct. So current players are the only one with a voting power. The disabled players who are affected by this had no vote, had no say in it.
Wow, that's but I would think that, again, to your point, and it is quite interesting that email goes out and you only have 10 days to vote.
Yeah, that's how it happened.
Ben, you said it was supposed to be in 2021. Why was it 2020?
It's a good question, and the Lorenzo Alexander, he was asked that question in an interview, and he said the owners presented him. Because whenever the owners give you an offer, you should listen, because it's probably going to be a good offer. Now, I've never heard of this style of negotiating before, of taking the very first offer you're given and believing that the owners are going to give you the very best, and that's why they're rushing a vote to you. So that's the explanation.
Right. I mean, I remember reading that it was like, well, this is the best we're going to get. And I'm going, the first one is the best you're going to get?
Yeah, it makes no sense. And it was set to expire in 2021. And, with social media, players have such a profound platform right now to directly interact with constituents and to let them know the issues of where they're being taken advantage by ownership, and to really rally support like never before. And none of that was used. I mean, it was literally out of nowhere. Boom, 456-page document, incredibly complex, legally dense.
Wow.
Tons of text. Vote, you got 10 days, go. In fact, some of the players, after Eric put out his memo pointing out the critiques, wanted to change their vote, and then the NFLPA said you couldn't change your vote. They claimed that it passed by 60 votes, although, I think that could be determined as well. We have to take them at their word on that as well. But we'll see. I mean, look, as I told you, I think it's a step in the right direction that they've at least acknowledged. Yet again, Eric is right. But as of now, it's just words.
All right, then. Final question for you, Eric. I know you're a free agent. Do you expect to be on the team by the beginning of the fall season?
Well, I hope so. Thus far, I haven't received any offers, but I'm still training and waiting for a phone call.
I want to be clear, too. Eric set 2 franchise records last year. If you look at his pound-for-pound stats, He's literally at the top of the game right now.
Right. That's why it was sort of confusing that you would have a great season like that, but then wouldn't get a phone call. Then again, we are talking about the NFL, where scrub quarterbacks can get huge contracts. Yet Colin Kaepernick is still sitting at home. Ben, Eric Reid, gentlemen, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Every single night, we've got some of the top black experts. You're not going to see them on cable news or broadcast news because you swear black people aren't experts when it comes to this health crisis. That's why we have this show and why we do what we do every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Joining us right now is retired General Russell Honore, the nation's first black Surgeon General, Dr. Joycelyn Elders. John Hope Bryant, he is the founder of Operation Hope. Senator Kamala Harris of California, Dr. Sadrina Calder, retired General Lloyd Austin, Congresswoman Karen Bass, Commissioner Omari Hardick, Bureau President in Brooklyn, Eric Adams, Dr. Joseph Graves, America's Wealth Coach, Deborah Owens, Dr. Corey Abear, Patel Saul, Howard University student, Pastor Jamal Bryant, Dr. Christy McDowell, Benja Ajilore, senior economist at the Center for American Progress, Gilda Daniels, again, author of the book, The Crisis of Voter Suppression in America. 4 stars, General Kip Ward, Dr. Oliver Brooks is president of the National Medical Association, president of the American Medical Association, Dr. Patrice Harris, Joby Benjamin, Dr. Alexia Gaffney, infectious disease specialist, Dr. Georges Benjamin, executive director of the American Public Health Association, Malcolm Nance, family medicine physician, Dr. Jen Caudle, Dr. Tashaka Cunningham, a molecular biologist, Kat Stafford. She's a national race and ethnicity reporter for the Associated Press. Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick, who is the president of Howard University, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke from the state of New York, William Spriggs, AFL-CIO economist, Andrea James, executive director of the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. All right, let's go to Capitol Hill. Congressman Gregory Meeks, Congresswoman Eddie British Johnson of Texas, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, mental health clinician Jamie Singletary, Prince George's County State's Attorney Aisha Brayboy, as well as Dylan Hayrie, ACLU Justice Division strategist. Dr. Cindy Duke, she is a virologist. Principal Steve Perry of Capitol Prep. Health and wellness specialist Dr. Yolandra Hancock, Desmond Meade, president of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, Cliff Albright, who is the co-founder of Black Voters Matter, Michael Harriet with The Root, Mina McWhorter, founder of Love by the Hand, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, economist, president, Emerita Bennett College, coroner Michael Fowler, is a mayor of Atlanta, Keisha Lance Bottoms, mental health therapist Suzette Clark, Justin Gibney, attorney and political strategist, and Bishop Vincent Matthews Jr., Dr. Suzette McKinney, CEO and executive director of the Illinois Medical District, Dr. Leon Madugal, president-elect of the National Medical Association, Jana Bailey, Mayor of Moss Point, Mississippi, Mario King. We're going to keep driving this thing to make sure our people are fully aware, safe, protected from coronavirus. You're getting the top medical experts, the top business experts, top political experts, top religious experts, because that's why we do what we do. Unapologetically and unfiltered. Ain't nobody else in the black media space doing what we do. Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.